the fog and the fork in the road. The night was too quiet. Mark Bennett, a 38-year-old divorced freelance illustrator, gripped the steering wheel tighter as his old Ford pickup rattled along a fog-choked country road in northern Vermont. His GPS had lost signal miles ago. He was trying to take a scenic shortcut through the backwoods to his late uncle's abandoned cabin, a place he hadn't visited in over 20 years. But something was off. The path wasn't on any map, and the deeper he drove, the thicker the mist grew. A fork appeared ahead. No signs. No lights. Just a rickety wooden sign leaning against a dead tree, scrawled in faded paint. "The hat will melt. What the hell does that mean?" he muttered. He took the left turn. The right path seemed darker, as if it absorbed what little moonlight filtered through the clouds. Something walks behind. As soon as Mark made the turn, the air changed. The mist shimmered with unnatural hues: pale green, bruised violet, and ash gray. Trees loomed tall, gnarled, and claw-like, their limbs curling inward like guardians of secrets. His headlights flickered. Then, a tap on the truck bed. Mark slammed the brakes. Silence. He got out, flashlight trembling in his hand. Nothing behind. Nothing around. Only a child's woolen hat lying in the middle of the road, soaked and dripping. He picked it up. It was warm. Suddenly, footsteps, barefoot and wet, slapped the ground behind him. He spun, but no one was there. Just long shadows stretching into the trees, too long for anything human. The house with no door. After another 10 minutes of crawling through the fog, his truck sputtered and died. Out of gas. But that wasn't possible. He had filled it just that morning. To the left, nestled in the fog, stood a house. Tall, Victorian, and rotting. No door, just empty windows, like staring eyes. As Mark approached, he saw a faint light flicker inside. A girl stood in the top window, her face pale, her eyes wide. She pressed her hand to the glass. Her lips moved without sound. Then she vanished. Whispers in the hall. Mark pushed through a gap in the boarded window and climbed inside. The air was heavy with mold and dust. Faint music played somewhere, a distant lullaby like an old music box struggling to sing. He called out, "Hello?" The house replied with a whisper. "Why didn't you save me, Daddy?" Mark froze. The voice wasn't just familiar, it was impossible. He followed the sound into the hallway. Portraits lined the walls, but the faces were all blurred, as if smeared by tears or fingers. On a side table sat the same woolen hat, dripping again. It wasn't in his pocket anymore. The room of shadows. He entered a child's bedroom. Dust-covered toys, a broken cradle, and scrawled drawings on the walls. All of them featured the same stick figure, a tall man with red eyes and a hat melting over his head like wax. "Mark," the voice whispered again, closer now. A shadow passed by the doorway. He turned and saw himself. Not a reflection. Another version of him, gaunt, hollow-eyed, wearing a black, melted hat. Then it was gone. The lullaby music warped into a low, distorted growl. Something banged from inside the closet. Mark opened it. Inside was a small skeleton, curled and cradling a half-burned stuffed rabbit. The fire that wasn't. His knees buckled. Mark fell back. Memories flooding. A cabin. A child's scream. Fire. No, it wasn't real, he stammered. He had no children. But he did. A daughter. Emily. She had died in a fire 12 years ago. The records said it was accidental. Mark had blocked it out, drowned it in pills and silence. But now he remembered the cabin, her scream, the storm. He had left her alone, just for a few minutes. The heater sparked. The flames spread. And now she was here. The path of redemption. The house groaned, then crumbled away like paper. Mark was suddenly back outside, kneeling on the misty path. Before him stood the girl in the window, Emily. Her ghostly form flickered like a candle in the wind. Her lips moved. This time, he heard. "You forgot me. I didn't mean to. I couldn't live with it. I thought forgetting would make the pain stop," Mark said, tears cutting lines down his face. "You need to remember. You need to save me." He stared. "I can't bring you back." Her hand reached out. "Yes, you can. But only if you go back. One last time. The hat will melt." The fog parted. There it was, the right fork in the road. The one he didn't take. Mark turned. The air was thick with burning wood and sorrow. The trees whispered, "The hat will melt," over and over like a warning or a chant. As he walked, the landscape changed. The trees became brittle and blackened. He smelled smoke, and then he saw the cabin. It was engulfed in flames, just like the night he lost her. He ran, ignoring the searing heat, the ghostly hands trying to pull him back. Inside, the fire blazed around him, and there, curled in the corner, Emily. The miracle twist, Mark wrapped his arms around her. "I've come back for you." The fire surged, but he didn't let go, and then everything froze. The flames turned to mist. The cabin dissolved. He was holding Emily, whole and warm. A bright light shone from above, pure and golden. A voice, not Emily's, spoke. "A soul cannot find peace until it is remembered." Emily looked up at him, smiling. "You remembered me." Mark sobbed, holding her tight. "I'll never forget again." She kissed his cheek and vanished like dawn mist. Returned to the living. Mark awoke in his truck, sunlight pouring in through the windshield. His phone buzzed. One new voicemail. Timestamp, 12 years ago. He played it. "Daddy? I'm scared. I love you." The message ended. He wept, but this time, not out of guilt, but gratitude. The hat lay beside him on the seat. Dry, warm, whole. He looked ahead. The fork in the road was gone. Just a straight path, bathed in light. He started the engine and drove forward. A faint knock. 1 month had passed since Mark's miraculous return from the foggy road that never existed on any map. He had gone to therapy, lit candles for Emily, even started drawing again. But healing, like fog, isn't linear. That night, just after 3:03 a.m., Mark awoke to a knock on his front door. 3 slow taps. His heart thudded. He crept downstairs, barefoot, holding the same woolen hat in his hand like a charm. He opened the door. No one. Only a shadow across the yard, long, thin, and walking away into the dark. The road appears again. The next day, Mark drove back to the place. There was no mist, no fork, no signpost. He should have turned back, but a glint in the grass caught his eye. A new sign, wooden and cracked. One soul remembered, one still forgotten. The hat remembers. Then, fog. Thicker than before. And that same lullaby playing from nowhere. Mark stepped out of the truck. The boy by the tree, a boy no older than 10, stood beside a dead birch tree, barefoot, pale, clutching a broken yo-yo. He looked up, eyes hollow. "You found her," Mark nodded. "But you didn't find me." Then the boy disappeared in a gust of wind. Where he stood, a melted plastic fireman's hat remained, charred, smelling faintly of smoke and copper. The school that burned, the fog opened like curtains, revealing an abandoned schoolhouse, crumbling and overrun with vines. Mark stepped inside. Walls were blistered black. Desks melted into the floor. A chalkboard read, "I started the fire. He saved them all. Except me." Suddenly, screams echoed through the halls. A bell rang wildly. And then, footsteps. Running. Dozens of them. Children's shadows burst through the walls, screaming, panicking. Mark ducked as ghostly smoke filled the air. Through it all, he saw the boy again, trapped, coughing, pounding on a locked door. "Please. I'm still here." The fireman's truth. Mark followed the trail of smoke to the gymnasium. There, standing tall and flickering like a flame, was the spirit of a fireman. A melted helmet on his head, his eyes hollow, arms burnt but strong. He turned to Mark and spoke in a gravel voice. "I tried to save them all, but I missed one." Mark's voice trembled. "The boy." The fireman nodded. "He's stuck between regret and silence until someone knows his name." Suddenly, a wall of flame exploded behind them. "Find his name," the fireman roared. "And don't let the hat melt again." The classroom of names. Mark ran into a half-collapsed classroom, the smoke chasing him like a living beast. The chalkboard listed names. David, Sarah, Emily. One stood out, Liam Carter. Suddenly, all the lights in the room flickered. The boy stood behind him. "That's me," he whispered. The world cracked like glass. Flames roared. The trial of flame. Mark was back in the hallway. But now it burned for real. No illusions. The school was collapsing. Mark grabbed Liam's ghostly hand. It was cold, but real enough. "We're getting out," he yelled. He pushed open the emergency exit, but instead of sunlight, there was a hallway of memories. Frozen moments from Liam's life. Riding a bike, laughing at recess, hiding in a locker during fire drills. "I didn't mean to hide," Liam whimpered. "I thought it was a game." Mark knelt. "You weren't forgotten." "Not anymore." The miracle flame. Suddenly, the fire froze. In the center of the room, the fireman reappeared, kneeling and extending a glowing hand. Liam ran to him. "I forgive you," the boy whispered. The fireman wept, and then burst into golden light. Liam turned to Mark one last time. "Tell my mom I was brave." He vanished, leaving only the melted fireman's hat, now whole and shining. The exit path. The fog lifted. Mark stood alone on the quiet road again. No schoolhouse. No fire. No ghosts, only the signpost, now with new words carved below. Two souls remembered. The road forgets. The hat remains. The fireman's hat rested on the signpost, untouched by time. The real closure? Mark returned home. He found an old news article online. Tragic fire, one student unaccounted for. Liam Carter, age 10. He sent an anonymous note and the fireman's hat to Liam's mother with just one line. He was brave. A whisper in the wind. 2 weeks after sending the fireman's hat to Liam's mother, Mark started to sleep again. His paintings, once filled with ash and shadows, now held color. But peace never stays long when you've walked a cursed road. One rainy night, a gust of wind blew open his front door, and there it was, the hat sitting on his porch. Dry, untouched by the storm. Beneath it, scratched into the wood. There are more. The toll must be paid. The toll keeper's mark. Mark tried burning the hat. It didn't burn. He buried it. It reappeared on his bed. He drove out to the woods and hurled it into the river. The next morning, it was sitting in his passenger seat, desperate. Mark consulted old newspapers, occult forums, and deep archives until he stumbled on a phrase. The hat will melt not by flame, but by truth. A toll must be paid for each soul led home. And then he found a drawing, ancient and etched in ink, of a figure wearing dozens of hats. Its face was blurred. Only one word was legible beneath it. Toll keeper. Back to the road. This time, the road appeared without invitation. Mark didn't drive there. It came to him. His bedroom dissolved into mist, and suddenly he stood on the familiar foggy path, but now darker, its trees twisted and bleeding sap. And this time, the signpost bore 4 hats, each melted differently. His voice echoed as he whispered, "Who are the others?" The fog parted to reveal a mirror hanging from a crooked branch. In it, Mark saw himself, wearing a 5th hat. The passenger, he heard breathing behind him. A woman stood there, pale, elegant, eyes sunken like wells. "My name is Celeste," she said. "I'm your next fare." Mark blinked. "Fare? You open the road," she replied. "Now you're its keeper. Until your toll is paid." The trees groaned. "I didn't agree to this." "You did. When you remembered the first name. When you showed mercy." Her story unfolds. Celeste led him to an old diner in the fog. Frozen in time, plates still spinning on tables, coffee steaming midair. "I died here," she whispered. "Or maybe I disappeared. No one ever found my body." Mark stepped behind the counter. Beneath it, a trap door. Inside, chains. Blood. A cracked locket with her picture. A shadow emerged from the back room. Her killer. Still hunting her in death. "I was afraid," she said. "So I never crossed over." Mark stepped between them. "Then let's finish this." He placed the hat on her head. The killer howled, turned to dust. Celeste smiled and vanished. The toll rises. Back at the signpost, now 5 hats. Another name remembered. But Mark began to feel it. Something slipping from him. A memory, maybe. Or his warmth. The toll was his life, piece by piece. Each soul guided chipped away at him. The child with no face. Next, a child appeared. He had no face, only a paper mask with Y written on it. Mark followed him to an old, broken well surrounded by toys. The child's voice echoed from the well. "She dropped me in because I cried too loud." Inside the well, tiny bones and a torn baby blanket. Mark wept. The child pointed to the hat. Mark placed it on the faceless figure. "Thank you," it whispered. Gone. Toll number 6, back at the post. 6 hats. The fog felt heavier. Mark could barely breathe. And now he saw something new. A ledger, nailed beside the hats. Each soul had a name, and beside each name, a toll taken. Liam Carter, strength. Celeste Monroe, voice. Baby Jonah, sleep. He read the next entry. Next. Sight. The blind widow. He stumbled to a lakeside house, now ruined by moss and silence. Inside, a blind woman played a violin in the dark. "I see with sound," she said. "But I heard my husband scream, then silence." Mark found her husband's boat underwater, shattered, broken by a storm. His body appeared in the fog, trapped in the lake, chained to the rudder. The widow touched her violin one last time. "I forgive you," she whispered. The chains shattered. Another soul remembered. Another hat placed. The miracle twist. The toll is paid. Mark returned to the signpost. 7 hats. His knees buckled. He looked into the mirror again. His eyes were gone. But the sign had changed. Toll paid. 1 soul remains. Yours. Suddenly, Emily's voice whispered in the fog. "Mark, it's time." He turned. She stood there, alive, glowing, heart pounding in her chest. "You gave up everything to help them," she said. "You remembered the forgotten." She held out her hand. "The road offers one miracle. Choose." "The final choice." Mark's voice cracked. "I gave away my strength, my sleep, my voice, my sight. But you kept your soul," Emily whispered. The final hat hovered before him, his own. He could place it on the post and vanish forever. Or place it on her. Mark put it on Emily. And suddenly, he collapsed. 12. Aftermath. He awoke in a hospital, alive. Emily beside him, weeping. "I got the heart transplant," she said. "From a Jane Doe. But something inside told me it was you." Mark looked at her. Sight returned. Voice unshaken. But the road never appeared again. He was no longer the keeper. Epilogue. A new toll keeper. Far away, in a dim alleyway in Kansas City, a young boy finds a woolen hat left on a bench. He places it on his head. The fog begins to form, and a voice whispers. The toll must be paid. A new keeper awakens. 10-year-old Eli Turner never expected anything magical to happen in the back alley behind his foster home. But the moment he picked up the woolen hat and placed it on his head, the world shifted. The alley dissolved into gray mist. Cold. Silent. Ahead stood a twisted signpost, wrapped in thorny vines. 7 hats rested on it, melted, scorched, torn. The fog whispered his name. Eli. The toll begins. The echo train. He found himself at a railway station, abandoned, overgrown, and impossibly quiet. A rusted clock above the platform was stuck at 12:04. A train sat motionless, its doors open, shadows flickering within. Inside, the seats were full. But every passenger was faceless, their clothes soaked in ash and soot. A conductor, skeleton thin, stared at Eli with hollow eyes. "They never made it home," he rasped. "This is the echo train. Only you can call their names." The woman in red. A lone figure stepped off the train. A woman in a red coat. Her hands trembled as she handed Eli a locket. Inside, a name. Half burned away. Marlo. Eli placed the hat on her head. "Marla?" she gasped, and burst into golden mist. The conductor nodded. "One soul remembered. But there's one we've never found. One without a name." Behind him, a cabin door creaked open. The hollow one. Inside the cabin, there were no windows. Only mirrors, floor to ceiling, each reflecting different versions of Eli. Some older, some crying, one with no face at all. A child's voice whispered from the shadows. "I never had a name. I never got one." A shadowy figure emerged, small, hunched, and crackling with static. Eli trembled. "Are you like me?" "No," it hissed. "I'm what's left when no one remembers. I am the hollow one, the rules of naming." The tollkeeper's book appeared in Eli's hand, ancient and pulsing like a heart. He opened it. Every soul he guided had a name inscribed beside a toll taken, but the last page was blank. Until now, the pen in his pocket moved on its own, writing, "Unnamed soul, toll, hope." Eli dropped the book. "I won't give up hope." The hollow one screeched, mirrors shattering, the train dissolving. The forgotten room. Eli stumbled through the fog and into a new scene. A maternity ward, flickering with dim emergency lights. Tiny cribs stood untouched. One held a teddy bear. Another held nothing. A nurse's ghost walked the hallway. "I was supposed to name him," she whispered. "But I died before I could speak." Eli touched the crib. A spark, a whisper. "Elias." He turned around. The hollow one stood there. "Why that name?" it growled. Because I'm giving it to you. The final hat. The tollkeeper's hat appeared, larger than all the others, glowing like embers. Eli took it and approached the hollow one. You're not nothing. You're Elias, the creature howled, shaking, weeping black tears. Will I feel? You'll be remembered. He placed the hat on its head. The fog turned white. The ground cracked, and light surged upward like a beam to the stars. The miracle twist. The road collapses. The signposts splintered. The hats flew into the sky like birds. The book in Eli's hands caught fire and folded into a flower. The tollkeeper's voice echoed. The toll is complete. The final soul remembered. The debt is closed. Eli blinked. He stood in the alley again. Hat gone. But behind him stood a woman, tears on her cheeks. You're the one, she said. I've seen your face in dreams. You saved my son. The real-world connection. She led Eli to a small house. Photos lined the walls. One was of a nurse, her sister. Another was of a stillborn child, unnamed. Until today, she took Eli's hand. Would you like to stay with us? Eli looked at the sky. The fog was truly gone. He nodded. Epilogue, a name that matters. In the woman's arms, Eli whispered, Call me Elias. And the world, for the first time in a century, felt quiet. The toll had been paid, and the hat had finally melted into memory. The crack in the sky. 1 year after the fog vanished and the hats melted into memory, Elias Turner, once Eli, lived peacefully with his adopted family. But peace, in his world, was never permanent. On a still autumn morning, the sky cracked, a thin black fracture stretching across the clouds like a vein. Birds fell mid-flight. Time paused, and Elias heard a voice he hadn't heard since the road faded. The final toll was paid, but the original debt remains, the forgotten keeper. That night, Elias dreamt of an ancient field, a hill crowned by a tree without leaves. At its base was a grave, unmarked yet radiating sorrow, a name whispered from the wind. Thorne, the original tollkeeper, the first to ever wear the hat. Elias woke, drenched in sweat. Beside his bed lay a burned journal that wasn't there before. Its cover read, The Road Beneath the Sky, Secrets in the Soil. Elias followed clues in the journal, sketches, symbols, riddles, to a forgotten countryside in Vermont. There, buried beneath moss and roots, he found an old wooden sign half swallowed by earth. Welcome to Hollow Mercy, an entire town. Gone from maps, from memory? He stepped through the overgrowth. The town materialized, faded buildings, ghostly shapes, frozen in time like a faded photograph. The town square had a statue of a man in a long coat, holding a hat. The plaque, Thorne, the first mercy giver. The curse of mercy. Inside Hollow Mercy's chapel, Elias found a mural, cracked and hidden beneath dust. It depicted Thorne, kneeling, surrounded by hundreds of faceless souls, each reaching for him. In the corner was a tree split in two, one side lush, the other charred, and below it, a phrase. He gave mercy to those who could not forgive themselves. But in doing so, he never forgave himself. That was the debt, the miracle curse. He saved everyone except himself. The locked door. In the back of the chapel stood a stone door sealed with 7 sigils, each one glowing dimly. Elias's presence made them pulse. From the journal. When the last keeper pays the price, the door shall open, and the debt shall end or begin again. He pressed his hand to the door. It swung open. Beyond it, a stairway spiraling downward into darkness. The core of the road. At the bottom, Elias stood in a massive underground chamber, an impossible place where the sky glowed above, trapped in a dome of fog. At the center was the original hat, encased in obsidian, bleeding light. And beside it, a man chained to a stone wheel, his face gaunt, beard long, his eyes blind but burning. Thorne. He turned to Elias and smiled. You made it. The truth of the hat. Thorne spoke slowly, as if his voice had rusted. I created the road when I refused to let my daughter die in vain. She had no name, no grave, forgotten by the world, so I built a path where the forgotten could be remembered. But I never forgave myself for not saving her, and so the road demanded I stay. Elias stepped closer. But you saved so many. Thorne shook his head. I was too proud to forgive myself. So the road never ended. The miracle twist. The hat melts twice. Elias took the original hat from its case. It burned with sorrow, but he didn't place it on Thorne. He placed it on the stone wheel itself. The dome shook. A beam of golden light surged upward, tearing the fog apart. Thorne screamed, but it was a scream of release. The chains shattered. The road beneath the sky crumbled into ash, and Thorne vanished into peace. Aftershock, one final soul. Elias climbed back to the surface, but now He was alone. No hollow mercy, no chapel, only open meadow. But at its center, a small sapling grew, and beneath it, a gravestone. It read, "To the girl who started the road. To the father who never stopped walking. To the boy who ended it." Epilogue no more told. Elias, now older, writes a book. The hat will melt. The road to mercy. It becomes a quiet legend, and across the world, forgotten spirits find peace, because someone finally forgave themselves. And that was the last toll the road ever asked for. The whisper returns. Years after Elias closed the chapter on the road beneath the sky, the world seemed calm. But tranquility is often the calm before a storm. In the deep hours of night, Elias woke gasping, his dreams invaded by a shadowy path winding through mist and trees. Voices whispered, soft but urgent. The road begins anew. The first dream, Elias saw a figure walking in the mist, a child with no face, clutching a worn hat. The child looked back. "Remember me," it said. Elias reached out to touch the figure, but his hand passed through, cold as air. He woke, heart-pounding, clutching his own hat, the last piece of the original tollkeeper's legacy. A message in sleep. The next nights brought more visions. Each one showed fragments of a new path. But this road wasn't made of sorrow. It pulsed with something darker, older, and hungry. And in every dream, the faceless child grew clearer. A name echoed in Elias's mind. Lenore, the forgotten warning. Elias found the old journal again. Between the worn pages, a hidden letter slipped out, written in a shaky hand. If the road resets, beware the seed of the forgotten. Forgiveness alone cannot break all chains. He shivered. What had he missed? The night walker? On a foggy evening, Elias walked through the town where he now lived. A shadow moved just beyond the streetlight's glow. A figure in a hat, faceless, silent. Elias called out. The figure vanished, but left behind a whisper. The toll is never over. It only changes hands. The new keeper's call. Determined to stop the cycle, Elias prepared. He gathered old relics, the melted hats, the burned book, and the glowing locket once given by the woman in red. He placed them in a circle in his room. The air thickened. The circle glowed. The faceless child appeared. Now a girl. "Will you walk the road again?" she asked. The choice. Elias felt the weight of the hat, warm and heavy. "Why me?" he whispered. "Because you remember," she said. "And because the road never ends while memory fades." He took the hat. The room darkened. The new road, Elias found himself standing at the start of a new path. This one twisting through deep woods under a sky thick with stars and shadow. Behind him, the familiar fog whispered. Ahead, voices called. He stepped forward, the miracle or the curse. As he walked, Elias wondered, was this a new chance or an endless curse passed from one keeper to the next? The road stretched on, endless as the night, and the hat began to melt once more. Epilogue, the endless path. The camera pans up to the cracked sky above the woods. A soft voice says, "Memory is a gift, but forgetting is a prison. The toll is paid by those who dare to remember, and those who forget must pay again." Fade to black. The end. For now,